Hi, everyone. Welcome to Embracing Autism IRL. Today, we have a very special guest, Meg Raby Klinghoffer. Meg is an autistic female, writer, and the author of the beloved My Brother Otto series. She's also a speech language pathologist at KultureCity, the leading nonprofit in sensory inclusion. Recently, KultureCity launched Koji, a groundbreaking free AI-generated communication tool designed to empower non-speakers and minimally speaking individuals. Meg has been at the forefront of this innovation, championing that the essence of life is to create spaces and communities of connection and belonging for those who so often go unseen. We are so thrilled to have her share more about Koji with us today. Welcome, Meg, to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, Meg, can you start off by telling us a little bit more about KultureCity for those who might not be familiar? What is the organization's mission, and why is sensory inclusion so important in the work that you do?
Yes. So KultureCity, as you stated, is the nation's leading nonprofit in sensory inclusion. So 1 in 4 kids and adults globally have an invisible disability, definitely including autism, ADHD, PTSD, anxiety disorder, Parkinson's, dementia. The list kind of goes on from there, but it's 1 in 4 kids and adults. And KultureCity, our mission is to make the nevers possible. So many of us feel as if or experience things in a way in which it makes it difficult to try out either novel experiences or there's been some perception maybe from prior experiences of trying a novel experience or even one that maybe you've tried a couple of times and they just don't go as smoothly and they're not as received as warmly maybe by those that are present and not aware of sensory processing challenges. So for example, I know KultureCity started out of Birmingham, Alabama, and we have 2 co-founders, Dr. Julian Maha and Dr. Michelle Kong, the most saintly, loving humans you will ever meet. And they have 2 autistic sons. And their older son is he's a non-speaking individual. Now he's a teenager. But at the time they were going to a museum and he loves Egyptology and he was very excited. And in his excitement and waiting in the lobby, I believe it was in the lobby of this museum with a huge crowd and whatnot, and he's kind of stimming and making noises and moving his body in ways in which people were not familiar with. And so they felt, like, okay, like this is a space where, clearly our son would love to be here, but we're not feeling invited into this. And I believe they were actually asked to leave. And so they stayed home. They stayed home for a long time. They had their second son, and he is the one. His name's Judah. He's amazing. He's the one that said, "We don't go anywhere." And so Julian and Michelle were like, "It's so true," and like this needs to change. So they launched this zoo event at the Birmingham Zoo, and they wanted it to be the first kind of like, okay, what can we do for sensory inclusion? And so they just like set up specific rules and specific, like just an environment where it is inclusive of just like, okay, just come, we're okay with however you want to present even yourself, however your families want to show up. And over, I think 700 families came. And so they were like, oh my gosh, like this is so needed. And so that is kind of like the birth story of KultureCity. And then they realized that their story is like so many other people's stories. Like, 700 that night showed up. And now we're 10 years down the road with KultureCity. And I believe our numbers are at over like 2 million something specific people have been positively impacted by KultureCity, be it we make places and spaces sensory inclusive. So we provide sensory bags. We provide, and I think this is probably my favorite part, we provide a training for all volunteers and staff at whatever entity or venue we are at or that reaches out to us. And then that makes it so that, again, so Birmingham Zoo will go back to them. They are sensory inclusive now 24/7, 365. So every day of the year you can go. It's not just a one night thing, which we do love those. But our goal is to make the world as accessible to the 1 in 4, again, like myself, um, like all the time, so that we do feel that sense of connection and we do get to experience just beautiful and fun experiences and not limit ourselves to make the nevers possible is our key mission. And then what was your final question? I felt like I
No,
missed.
that was included in there because I was talking about the sensory inclusion aspect. And like one of the things that I've seen that you guys done, because we're down in the Georgia area and we went to the aquarium and we saw like the Culture City sensory inclusion stuff everywhere. We were like so impressed by it. We actually did a podcast episode on it. And some people who listened to our podcast actually came down to visit the aquarium because of our episode, because of those sensory spaces. So it's definitely something that like has caught our attention and the attention of the local community too. So
I I love that, and I am sorry that I have not seen. See, now I'm gonna be a follower, and I'm going to search for that. Thank you for spreading the word, because that's what we want. We want people to know about us, not for our namesake whatsoever, but to be like, yeah, like this exists, and you're invited into this, and we are so glad that you exist, and we want you to be a part of all of this. So I love that you shared that.
absolutely. So I was wondering, with your personal connection to Culture City, like how do you kind of fit into this puzzle? Like what brought you to Culture City?
Great question. So I, as you mentioned, my background is as a speech and language pathologist. I graduated about, I don't know, now like 12, 13 years ago. And I primarily worked with both autistic children and adults at a variety of different settings. And in that, I, at the time, actually didn't even know I myself was autistic. Um, but I did know I would connect relatively quickly and deeply with every like neurodivergent child or adult on my caseload. Like it would be, I tell people all the time, like, yeah, because I am a rule follower, I know all the theories and everything with speech language pathology. But I always tell people, I was like, I think actually my connection that I would have with the child or the adult, it's kind of like you make that connection, you can teach anything. And you also, like, I learned so much in those interactions. And specifically, what I learned was, I knew the old school, what they call them, like the 13 red flags of autism. And I knew those down pat, and like I could write the best the best paper on what autism looked like. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, but now you're going to go to this clinic and you get to interact, with these autistic children. And within like 10 minutes, I'll never forget, like I can say his first name. His name's Victor. He was a 3-year-old. And right away, I mean, like he saw me, he like brings up this Angry Bird stuffy and was just looking at me and was like, I could just tell, like, he was like, come with me. He was a non-speaking 3-year-old at the time. And I remember hanging out with him just for my 30-minute session, just to quote unquote build rapport. And at the end of it, I was just like, I'm so confused. It's like, this kid totally wants connection. He's not like in his own world. The stimming behavior, I remember his specifically, was the like flapping his hands, but he would do it when he got so excited. And it was just, I don't know, it was just very smooth sailing for me to figure out like what is Victor feeling and communicating in the ways he is specifically expressing it. And for a while he didn't have any sort of AAC or alternative and augmentative communication, but we still, like, I promise, like, it was just such a jaw-dropping relationship for me that changed everything, that led me to then writing a book called My Brother Otto, which then that book came out in 2019. And I then connected via social media and that book with Dr. Julian Maha. I'll never forget, like, pacing the back, doing figure eights, like in the backyard, and just hearing him kind of share with me all about like the work of Culture City. And then he's asking me, and I was like, he just met me on the phone, and he's like, what do you think of, like, what do you see of adding like to this world, and like how can I support you, how can Culture City support you? And I'm just like, what? Like, this is amazing. Like, is this real? And then from there, and like hearing their work and like seeing like they're doing stuff that I feel like is what a lot of us individuals and families really want. And that is like, can we, like, yes, therapies, they're great. I mean, therapies are great. And I get, we can do a whole nother conversation on therapies. But Culture City is kind of like, okay, you are autistic, you maybe, you have ADHD, you have Parkinson's or something. And it's like, what can we do, and how can we celebrate that now, versus it being like we're going to get there once, like we're going to prep you and get you there at some point, but not today. And Culture City's like, no, like, you're allowed to be autistic. You're allowed to be, to have ADHD or whatnot. And we are also just kind of like, you're human. So come join us. And it's like, it's so deeply personal, to not only our founders, but then to this whole system of like a board and our small knit little Culture City team. That it's like this infectious passion that's there, and it's just been such a gift. And so yes, so through my book, I stumbled upon Culture City, through that, in that time, volunteered with Culture City, out of Salt Lake City, because I live in Utah, for a couple of years, and then worked part-time for Culture City while still doing speech and language pathology direct services. And then exactly kind of what I just said, had these like hard conversations with myself and with my spouse, like about, I see the same kids on my caseload every year, multiple times a week, and I love them and I love my families. And then I was like, that's really sad though, that they have therapy like literally for every year, multiple times a week. And like, I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's how we actually kind of stumbled upon Autism Wish as well, because
yeah,
we
I
found
love
the
that.
similar culture kind of stigma with the disability
Yeah,
population and not being able to really do anything and not being able to find the resources, especially during like the COVID lockdowns and all that. It like really, really harmed, I think, the disability community. So that's like completely relatable. I
yeah,
wanted to ask you though,
yeah,
about your relationship with the Koji project, because that's something that I saw on social media and it drew my attention immediately, and I was like, I need to talk to them about this because it's been a pain point in the community for so long. And for listeners out there who have no idea what this is, Culture City recently announced Koji, which is a free AI generated communication tool. Free, emphasis on free, because these programs are usually hundreds of dollars for parents. So I wanted to ask if you could share with us what the story behind Koji is, what led to the development, and what exactly it is, how it works.
yeah. I get so excited. um, so Culture City, we've been for a decade focusing a lot on sensory inclusion and inviting people that are often, just, staying at home, and there's not that access to these experiences or to these tools and accommodations. So we have that, but then we were like, okay, so now they show up to the concert or they show up to the venue, and it's like, full inclusion and participation is being able to, share a story, voice a joke, voice an opinion, ask a question and whatnot. And so we took that idea of like, how can we like really amplify the inclusion, coupled with personal experiences with, just what you were kind of saying, the pricey other AAC devices and apps that are out there. And we always are the first to say, like, we're not here to like take over all of AAC. We understand like there's a time and a place for different things, and we're not, yeah, we're not here to take over that. What I will say is, we as a team and as like families and as, having non-speakers that are personal in our lives have seen how some of these things are just falling short. One of the biggest things I would say as a speech pathologist that's been very apparent in my own work, and then in the work of other friends that I have that are speech pathologists, is that it's almost like the child or the adult learner, yes, it's amazing that they can learn to request kind of some basic things. And we love, like, again, that autonomy, seeing the joy of the first time, being able to request for a Bluey episode or something, like that's everything. And that's empowering to that child or that adult. We love that. But again, like, as we know, communication is so much more than just saying, I want Bluey, I want cookie. We use language, again, we use it to invite others in, we use it to protest, we use it to advocate for ourselves, we use it to describe, to share a story, a joke, state the latest vernacular that I am too old for now and had to like look up all these words when looking at Koji. I was like, what? what is Riz?
Oh, yes. I know all about that.
Okay. And we were like, okay. And it needs to make sense. Like, it needs to be more intuitive, more like, if we know the science behind AAC is modeling, like parents or caregivers or friends being able to model these AAC apps and devices, then we hope that they are able to know how to do that and that they feel empowered to do that. Because again, I always bring up a more extreme case of where that ability, or like that, the ability, because of lack of like resources and time, makes it all the more of a hurdle to get to that place of modeling. So for example, if you think of, like, again, a single mom with multiple jobs, multiple kids, gets home, is so exhausted, sees that, that iPad sitting there with that app on there, and they're like, oh yeah, I need to do that. But then you're called by the other kids in the other room. And then, these kinds of things happen over and over. We don't want anyone to feel, guilty for not being able to model, but we also understand that we need to, partner with the best practices of science. And if it's modeling, that makes sense. And it modeling in context, which I think is so key, because that gives that multiple mode of information to you, because then you're getting the auditory, you're getting the like visual, you might be getting, like with Koji, you're going to be getting like the written graphemes so that you can process information that way. And then you're getting, like what is around you in your room when your mom is saying something to you. So we wanted on the spot ability to model. And obviously, as you said, it was free, which I still like freak out about. We were like, no more. Like, that means, like, if it's not free, then you typically have to have, a tablet, or you have to have a speech pathologist for an evaluation. And then you probably have to have a primary care physician to write a letter of medical
Insurance
necessity.
and grants.
Insurance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, even I will say, like, I also have more, I had some more affluent families on my caseload at times too. And even they are waiting like
Oh,
3
yeah.
to 6 months for stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is ridiculous. Like, this kid.
If you don't have to go through the process where you have to appeal because there's some sort of denial on a technicality. So that's even longer of a process. I want to ask you if do you know like specifics on how Koji works? Like what type is it? How is it different from the standard AAC devices?
Yes. I was going to be like, oh, I don't know like the tech programming, but I
know
know
no. Just like the functionality, like what makes it different from the other ones?
Yes, good. I was going to be like, I'm not going to try to like make anything up because I can't, my brain doesn't even do that. But okay, so this is so cool. So you will literally download the KultureCity app, free, totally free. There's no in-app purchases or anything. And then on the bottom right, there's the Koji icon. You will click on the Koji icon, and that opens up the communication system that has the AI talker. The AI talker is at the top left. You will select the microphone on it. And what it does is, and it is so accurate, it's so cool, but you can say anything. So say, let's pretend I am the mom speaking to a non-speaker, I can literally just quickly hit that on the app, the microphone, and say, today I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. And then I could just hit send. So I didn't even ask a question, and it'll put that on the screen for them. And then it generates potential options on how to respond back to that. But it also has open-ended. So like what I love about it too is like you can do text to speech right there on it, or you can, there's like a speller's board. You can access language folders to respond back to that if those responses are maybe not exactly what you're wanting to say. However, I will tell you, you can keep hitting more options on it and it will generate the variety of responses. So it's so beautiful because that is how language works. We create categories and whatnot in our minds on what makes sense. And we need that context and we need the modeling. So we can't just probably have a 5-minute modeling session one day or once a day. We kind of need this to be happening all the time. So I love how, as the parent, you can literally just say how you're feeling, and then you can model to, again, like if it's your non-speaking child, you could say, since I am overwhelmed, what do you think I should do? Like you could literally say all this. What do you think I should do? Do you think I should rest? Do you think I should go for a walk? Do you think I should make my favorite muffins? And Koji will then, the AI part will list each of those things that I just said out in specific, like individual buttons. And so then what's so cool is like, because people will say, well, what if the child doesn't really know what those buttons are? I was like, but then you can still, think about this. You can then, they tap it and maybe it was make muffins. You can still respond and treat that as like, that is what they were going to say. And the more we do that, the more they're getting, again, they're going to see the written words. They're going to see the little tiny icon that's there. They're going to see this all done in context. And they're going to see like there was no necessary like extra effort on them to have to try to like fit into the AAC. Does that make sense in a way? It's kind of
Yeah.
like,
I was going to ask you about that. Like, so with standard AAC, there usually is kind of like a training quality to it where you really have to kind of train the parent on how to use it. And then there's like a gradual process where the kid is being trained and you add things over time. So it sounds like from what you're describing that with the AI version of it, that's really pared down significantly. Like, is there like what is kind of like the amount of time or process needed for a child to kind of get up to speed on how to use this?
yes. So I will say we're still in process of like getting all the research specific to those questions. However,
Hmm.
what I can say is the exciting thing is, so it launched this July, it launched, and then like the first 3 weeks, we had 55,000 downloads, which is just mind-boggling.
Wow.
Like, wow, like so people obviously we see the need, we see the desire and the curiosity, and we love that. And then we've just been right now we're just receiving stories and like people are sharing little videos with us to say, like, look at this, like, look at me. I'm just using this, with my adult child who is a non-speaker, and we're interacting right away. And it's just been so fun because it's like a variety of ages of people that are really picking up on that. And then I would say at this moment, we don't know exactly where it is of like when you said like the user becoming independent. I think that's
Hmm.
going to depend again on the modeling, on their intuitive kind of tech.
User experience stuff.
Yeah, but however, I'm like, let's be honest, lots of neurodivergent kids and adults are like masters at YouTube
Figuring tech out.
and
Yeah.
Amazon and all the things tech. So, but what I've seen again is like I would literally give, and I'm like, oh no, what if some of the families are watching? They know I love them. They know we're a team. But there would be families that I would work with, and I'd give like the same homework assignment kind of over and over and over and over again. Because it would get tricky to model these phrases, and they'd be like, Meg, like I'm stuck on just saying like, come with me, come. And I was like, that's beautiful though. Like I'm so proud that like you're using it. but with Koji, you're hitting all those multiple modes of language and how we use language. And then the parent is like, I can do this. Like I can literally be in the kitchen and say, I'm making mac and cheese. Do you want to add almond milk to this or goat's milk? I don't know who uses goat's milk. And then, the kid can respond to that. And then, because people will say, okay, so now we're seeing like it's the modeling, like the parent can model, the partner, a spouse, a teacher can use it to model. And that's amazing. And we're thrilled with that. And then the goal is going to be obviously always getting someone to feel as autonomous and to have access to the tools that they need to be understood and to be a full effective communicator to the level they wish to be. And so we would then be teaching them to, initiate with selecting like the microphone to pick up what people are saying, so that it puts it on their device so that then they can respond accordingly. And I really again, we'll probably have to meet again in a couple of months after we get some more work done behind the scenes on that specifically. But that is the goal, is to get them to be able to use the microphone part, and then to also be able, all within one free app, to be able to do text to speech, to grab those language folders that they need, that also were created under the premise of presuming competence of all children, all adults, honestly, no matter the diagnoses. And then we took in speech and language pathology. I'm sure have you heard of gestalt language processing?
Yeah, I just made a post about it today on social media.
Oh, I'll go find. So gestalt's what we know again about that is, it's whole language learning. It's you hear the whole phrase, it can even just be a sound or something, but it can be it's a whole phrase of something that is then processed as the whole piece of communication. So you might hear, again, an echolalic communicator, so someone that kind of repeats things or repeats similar or the same phrases and stuff. I always think of To Infinity and Beyond, because I have heard that one actually a couple of times, and I love it because I think it's
so cute. I like that one.
And that it's a positive,
optimistic.
It's definitely connected to an emotion that's a positive. And so I'm all for saying To Infinity and Beyond all the time. I love it. But anyway, so gestalts, we were okay, so again, most, if not all, of the existing AAC devices and apps that are out there are individual word building with pictures. And you will see now on a lot of them, and this is great, you can actually program different gestalts now, but that can also be a little bit of a headache for sure. And so what we decided was, let's totally presume competence, and let's just because when you're a mom too, sorry, my brain goes everywhere. But when you're a mom and you're holding your baby, you're looking at that baby and you're just talking to it. You're not expecting them to talk back or anything. You might be describing what you see, what you feel, or whatnot.
Oh yeah.
Singing a song. And you're not expecting them to start verbally saying what you're saying, at 2 months. And it's just this, it's again, it's in context. And I'm sorry, I'm missing.
That's exactly what we're talking about today on our post, though, about the gestalt language. Yes. So we are reading to our 4-month-old, knowing that she's not language processing the reading aspect of it, but kind of starting off to ingrain those patterns of just reading and speech.
Yes, and when you're okay, now I know where I was going. So when you are the mom, and you're exactly, so you're holding the baby. You're not just constantly speaking in single words either. It's not just, yes, you label things with single words, and that's great. Or you go up, down. But even that up, down, that's a gestalt. So we're okay, well, why are we doing solely kind of this individual word building and in general? Because I also have had many kids on my caseload that will transfer saying I want to things that don't necessarily make sense, like I want
Mm-hmm.
hello. Um,
Yeah.
or like, I don't know. Yeah, just saying like if they're labeling something, they might actually say like I want yellow, I want red,
Yep.
because they've learned like this like pattern of the whole phrase. Though it's not just red; it's I want red. I hope I'm explaining that well.
Yeah,
But
like
then
they're not really understanding the meaning behind the phrase. They're
yes,
kind of just memorizing the phrase as if it's like one block image, and they're just
yes,
kind of spitting it out.
yeah. So let's just give them the phrases, like let's have them in these language folders so that they're hearing them multiple times. They're hearing full phrases that make sense of a variety of language constructs again. So like a comment, an invitation to join in, a protest, an advocacy statement or something, and give those, like if they're already there in those folders, and Koji starts to learn your persona, which is very cool. Did you know that?
No, but I know
Okay.
AI does it, so I would assume Koji could.
Yeah. So it starts to learn your persona. And so it's going to pull all of that language that you tend to use to the top into easy access on the app, so that it learns you. It's like Spotify in a way, and it learns
Yeah.
you so that you can have those conversations that you're wanting to have. But again, going back to if we're holding the baby, and I'm the furthest thing away of infantilizing the adult non-speaker with that. I'm just saying in general, when you're teaching a language, and if we're going to presume competence, then like let's think about like the in context language learning and the modeling and what that could look like to really be beneficial and to make sense. And to then empower the parents so that they can model these things within the context of like watching a Bluey episode, or ordering stuff. Like I always think of some of my friends that love to order stuff on Amazon. Like let's have an Amazon whole language folder that we can just talk about Amazon, and and it goes on and on from that. And
Infinite
it's,
opportunities, especially with AI now. You can pretty much do anything. It's pretty amazing.
it
Um,
is.
I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you a question. So I have probably like a question or two for you. The first one is one that I ask pretty much everybody that's on their show, and it's the concept of embracing autism. So, like, our podcast is called Embracing Autism, and everybody has a different interpretation of what that means to them.
Mhm.
And I wanted to ask you from your perspective as an autistic adult, and I think you said you have autistic children as well, right? What
Mhm.
does that phrase kind of mean to you, embracing autism? What does that concept mean to you?
Yeah. Um, it means as soon as I hear the phrase embracing autism, it's, the opposite of embracing is rejecting, and it's like attached, I think, to a fear. And so I hear embracing, and it's just like this arms wide open, again, come as you are. You're perfect as you are. Yes, you have a disability. That's great. We're going to maximize on your strengths, and we're going to partner with you when you need assistance. And honestly, all humans at some point, probably throughout every day, need assistance. But the embracing part is, again, it's just arms open, like come as you are. Um, and we're just happy like that you are who you are.
I love that. So, two more questions about the Koji app. One is, where can people find it if they are interested in Koji app? And then, closely related to that, what can we expect for the future of Koji? Do you guys already kind of know where you're going with this, or is
Oh, yeah.
this just the beginning to something bigger?
Yes, and I'm so glad you asked that. And I want to tell anyone listening or watching that please email us. So you can email like support at KultureCity with a K.org, and let us know like what you want, and what you think this is lacking, what is good. Like we want to know all of it. But we do have ideas for, Koji 2.0, and the issue is, and we will get there. We definitely will get there. Is fundraising, because we want the key for us is like if it's not free, then we're not having Koji. So we're like, let's keep it free. Anyone that has an Android or an Apple smartphone or tablet can literally go to the App Store and download for free, again, the KultureCity app. There is no in-app purchases. I cannot stress that enough because I've gotten a lot of questions about that, like if there is going to be at some point these hidden fees and whatnot. And I was like, no, like that is like.
So just to clarify, Koji itself is not an app that's separate. It is within the KultureCity app. So they have to go and download the KultureCity app.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I show on the screen and like talk it out just to show, like I'll verbally.
You can try.
Okay. Let me describe.
I'm not sure if it'll let you.
Okay. Well, you're gonna
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. If you open up your phone, you're gonna see the orange KultureCity app. I'm gonna select that. And then it opens up. Well, that's gonna be the glare. But let me go to the home page. So there's the home page. And then I know it's blurry, but I'm still going to describe it to you. So it's on the bottom right. You're going to select Koji. And then Koji is going to open up and it's going to walk you through. You can create. It's going to ask some questions about like, what's your name? What are 3 of your favorite things like that people should know about you? Like, what are your allergies? It asks those questions and it will help you to set up Koji like right away, and then you right away have that AI talker piece where you can select the AI talker at the upper left again. So it's the KultureCity app that you download. It's not the Koji app. So it's KultureCity, and then in the KultureCity app is Koji. And the reason we did that is because the KultureCity app is also another wonderful resource where you can learn about like the homepage will tell you right away if you have your address in there. It'll tell you like all the local venues and entities that have taken our training and are certified and have bags or a sensory room that we've created or a mobile sensory station cart that we've created at that entity. So that's a really neat part of it. And then it also has those visual cue cards that are a part of all of our sensory bags right there on the app at the front. That tells like you select how you're feeling and you can select and advocate for what you might need to get back to a state of regulation and homeostasis in the body. And then again, it also has the social stories in there of the different entities and venues that we work with so that you can prep ahead of time and see kind of like, okay, when I go to this Lego store, this is what I can expect. This is how I can access a sensory bag. And it's very empowering to the individual and also to the family. And then Koji is then the other piece to, again, increase the inclusion, make it accessible, make it quick on the spot. Like everyone pretty much has a phone, like a smartphone. And so we were just like, let's just put it all together. So
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's so fun.
I'm really looking forward to see where that goes. Like I feel like it's gonna take off because it is kind of groundbreaking in that there isn't really anything like it. So I'm curious to see what happens and if maybe the competitors start switching over to an AI model now too. So we're going to wrap up here, but I want to make sure that our followers and our listeners of the podcast know where to find you, where to find Koji. So where is KultureCity on social media, and where can they find you on social media to stay connected?
Yeah, so it's the name KultureCity. So it's at KultureCity for Instagram. And then on Facebook, it's KultureCity, and KultureCity is spelled with a K. And I'll just tell you right now, because I never asked why for a long time. And then I found out it's because we're changing the culture, which I was like, oh, brilliant. So
that's hilarious.
Yes.
Oh, that's like, so genius.
In my head, I'm like, they're so kind. I was like, it's kind culture.
Oh, no. But that's even better. That's like really clever, changing the culture. I like it.
That's why it's KultureCity. And so, yes, so social medias are just our name, KultureCity, one word. Same for, so Instagram, Facebook, what is the new Twitter, X? It's like culture and then C instead of KultureCity. Go on our website, www.kulturecity.org.
And then I believe you can find Meg at author.meg.raby. Is that on Instagram and Facebook or just Instagram?
That is both. Yes,
both.
Instagram and Facebook. I'm definitely more active on Instagram, is more my jam.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
everyone, you heard that. Make sure you give her a follow up with Culture City because you will want to know the updates on Koji and where this goes. I'm curious. I'll be following. Meg, thank you so much for this really informative interview. We're really looking forward to seeing what comes out of Koji, and we will definitely be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you so much.